City Council for Monday, April 19th, 2021. Our invocation this evening will be offered by Lori Dean Wiley, member of Epic Church. If you would still please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
And right before I pray, I'd just like to remind everybody that on May 6th is the National Day of Prayer, started by our very own President Truman. Join me in prayer. Father God, I just want to thank you so much for the beautiful day. I want to thank you for each of these elected officials, the servants that work for the citizens of Independence and for the citizens themselves. I want to thank you for your blessing upon us as we are coming out of this pandemic, and ask that you continue to show your grace and mercy upon us. Be with those still fighting it, and be with the businesses that have felt the effects of it. We thank you for your ability to see, know, and love all. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff.
Here.
Perkins. Here. Stewart.
Here.
DeLucy.
Here.
Steinmeier.
Here.
Hobart. Here. Mayor Weir.
Here. We have some citizens who have requested to speak to the council tonight. The first is Kevin Baird, who requests to speak to the council regarding bill number 21749, and I believe Mr. Baird is joining us virtually. If you would please go ahead and turn on your camera and unmute yourself. Hello, and introduce yourself. You will have 5 minutes, and the city clerk will keep your time.
Oh, thank you very much, and good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I do these Teams meetings all day, but you know, Murphy's Law, it would go wrong on the time that I chose to speak at your council. So thank you to all of you for allowing me to speak tonight, and thanks to the city for making it so easy. I hadn't even decided to even come speak to y'all until about 11:15 today, about lunchtime. So it was real nice and easy to get that agenda, and it was real nice and easy to be able to reach out to the city clerk for help. So thank you for making it for representative democracy like this, that you made it real easy for someone like myself. So I do need to pause for a moment because I have a statement I have to make on behalf of my employer, but I am here of my own volition tonight as a private citizen of the City of Independence. I am not representing my employer, which we'll probably figure out here pretty quick, or any of their beliefs or views. This is my belief and view as someone that's lived here in Independence since I can remember skin in my knees. So it just so happens that what I do in my professional life bleeds over into the topic I wanted to talk to you all about tonight. So it's just me as a private citizen talking here. But I was, outside last night or night before last, and got this great field behind me, and it gets overgrown, and I can see nature happening. So there's these hawks coming back. I remember as a kid, I think we saw some foxes. We've heard the coyotes out there. I saw a video on your city YouTube channel the other night about that. But anyway, I heard an animal find its demise. It had to be that, and it had to be I was thinking it was like an owl or something, because it happened so quick. You didn't hear anything. You didn't hear the coyotes or anything. So this owl was swooping around, and I don't know. Sometimes I get off on these analogies, and then I'm not sure where I'm headed. But anyway, I was looking over the agenda the other night because I do like to poke in from time to time, and the times that I have poked in, I'll be quite honest with y'all, have been a little bit concerning, particularly as a utility man. So I've got 20 years of utility experience here in the area. So that's why I had to give that little disclaimer. But every time I pop in, put my head in and lean in, feels like things are not going very well. So, for example, I can remember sitting outside of a soccer practice that my son had here in the city a few years back and listening to discussion on AMI meters, which is low-hanging fruit to those that are wondering. There is no reason why the city of Independence, where Harry Truman put his name, can't have something like AMI meters. I can tell you folks, in the real world, 73% of the country now, I think, has these things. And if folks were going crazy and bleeding out everywhere, it'd be probably competing with coronavirus. And that's another thing I'll thank you all on putting your masks on. I do hope that you're considering going back to virtual entirely, though. So I'm a little selfish when it comes to stuff like this because I look around at what the utility's doing, and I'll tell you where my concern is, and it's again selfish, is I like working from home. My employer knows that I like to work from home, and for that to really work well, I need to have reliable electricity. I don't want to move to some other place like some other families are doing.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So one thing I did want to bring up here is I don't think the utility's being run the way it should. I know the folks on the PUAB are doing the best that they can, but they're volunteers. I know you folks are doing the best that you can, but you're elected officials. I think we need to restructure the PUAB. I think this utility needs to be looked at top to bottom, figuring out if the city can even try to manage its way out of the hole it finds itself in. This utility is not the piggy bank. We are paying the bills around here, and we are paying attention. That's what I was going to say. The owls. The owls are always watching. Those rabbits out there in that field, they know one day that owl might come around, and I have a feeling there's probably some owls starting to look around this utility. So better start minding our business so we make sure that we don't get folks around our town that we don't want around our town. Thank you again for your time. Hope you get outside and get some that daylight, because I hear that there's some snow coming. So take care.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. We have a couple other citizens here this evening who would like to address the council. The first is Catherine Alexander, who would like to speak about crime and disorder and meeting invitation. Ms. Alexander.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Alexander, as you know, and I am here to invite you to a meeting on crime and disorder that's going to be held at Cassell School in the parking lot on April the 22nd. Whether it is your district or not, we would like to have you come, especially if it is your district, we would like to have you come. We have gone through South Hardy Street all the way from 40 Highway down to 23rd, knocked on doors, and met some very nice people. Last night at 12:25, a woman screamed, "I'm going to kill him." And my neighbor heard that from his camera. Then he texted me and said, "I'm going to call the police," as she tried to get in my door, my front door. So it was 12:25 on a Sunday night. So the doorbell rang once, then the door shook. There was no car anywhere. She didn't have any shoes on. I had never seen her before in a residential area, and there are no businesses anywhere near for 2 blocks. The story ends with her out-of-state driver's license being checked by the police and her being loaded into an ambulance because she was bleeding all over the place, all over my house and all over my neighbor's house. So why come to a meeting? Well, that's an amazing situation that happened last night, because you want to go to a meeting to learn what is the politically correct manner to take back your neighborhood in a safe, affordable, and secure method. It is not enough to watch criminals. We need to prevent crime with light, sound, dog walking, us walking, talking to each other, and demanding an end to unchecked crime and disorder in Kansas City on the boundary, which is a drain on our resources. Evidence that is created by cameras need to be used, and crimes have to be prosecuted with specific, measurable, unpleasant penalties that are swift. In order to do that, we're going to have civic involvement. That means we have to register, vote, and show up. I've been tired of showing up, but I'm still going to show up because my house is all I've got. I can't move, and I'm not going to, and I shouldn't have to. I need to support law enforcement by not breaking the laws. That's the first best way I know of to support them. And the next thing is ask that management be required to return to the field and patrol neighborhoods. Then we need to incentivize patrols. Being promoted to a desk doesn't help reduce crime and disorder. More than anything, we need to register, and we need to vote, and we need to show up. And if we don't like the job that somebody is doing, we need to vote them out, and if they are employed and not performing, and continuously not performing, we need to find some methodology of measuring that and doing something about it, because our quality of life depends upon it. 7 taxpayers last night were interrupted in their homes. 7 taxpayers are terrified to live where they live. So I have said everything in a nice, politically correct manner. And hopefully that is a big wake-up call within itself. Because normally I'm not that politically correct or polite. But tonight I am. Because I really want people to come to that meeting. Especially the people that are veterans that are terrified to live in their house. They serve this country and they're afraid. They've sold their possessions because people cut their catalytic converters off.
You have 1 minute.
That shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen that an elderly woman is afraid to answer the door. That should not happen. We can do better if we want to do better. And what I have right now in my neighborhood is coming to everybody else's neighborhood unless we make a stand and do it correctly and do it legally and lawfully. That's all I have to say about that.
Ms. Alexander, you said the meeting is April 22nd, which is this upcoming Thursday, at the Castle Park School parking lot, outdoors.
6:30 p.m.
6:30 p.m. Okay, that's what the part that I may have missed.
If it rains, it'll be in the cafeteria.
Okay.
And the Independence Police will be there, 2 council people will be there, and we really hope that everyone else will be there.
Okay, thank you. Bring a chair, right.
Bring a chair.
And a blanket and an umbrella.
And a
Okay.
mask.
Yes, and a mask, great, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you letting us know about that. Our next speaker this evening is Crystal Gamble, who wishes to speak to the council about removing the mask mandate. Ms. Gamble.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. This is my first council meeting, so I'm going to wing it. I have watched numerous newscasts. I'm not a mask fan. I'm not. But I believe everybody should have their right. If you want to wear it, you wear it. If you don't, then it shouldn't be forced on us. I've seen numerous news reports, and I didn't have a chance to bring all the information. States they don't work. Then you got the same ones that say they do work. Myself, personally, I'm healthy. I've worked every day through the pandemic. There's no reason for me at my health to have to wear these. They're ridiculous for me, and I'm not the only one. But there's numerous people out there that wear them because they don't want to be confrontational, and they just don't, they want to get along. And I did it. I did it for a whole year, did everything that was asked of me. I worked every day, wearing the mask, doing what was expected. Well, now it's time to stop. You know, you've seen Jim Jordan on the floor stating that it's taken our rights. How much longer are our rights going to be taken? I've called the governor. I'm setting a meeting up with him. And I'm sorry, Mayor, I've called your office, and the lady is just so high-horsed about, aren't the vaccines great? Aren't the masks wonderful? Well, if that's what you want, that's your choice. But that's not my choice. I don't want that vaccine. I'm not going to get it. And she's saying that we're going to have to wear these until everybody gets them. Well, I'm not. You know, I'm not one of these crazy people, oh, don't vaccinate your children, don't that. My children are vaccinated, my grandchildren are vaccinated. But I don't do the flu shot, I don't do the pneumonia shot. You know, and that's my choice. I don't get sick, so there's no reason for me to push that envelope, you know? And I just feel that this should be something that's left up to the person. You know, I have had so many people go crazy over, I'll be out and about doing something there, where's your mask, where's your mask? I'm outside and you're not 6 feet to me, what's it matter? There's a new one that come out that I was trying to get the information printed before I got here, talking about Stanford study on, I can't even remember the numbers, there's so many, or letters, DO something, that said that the masks do not work. You know, I should have been more prepared, yes I should, with all that document, but my bottom line is, I just want our rights restored to your choice, your right, that's it. You know, I don't see the sense in forcing everybody to be put into one box, that's all. So,
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming. Appreciate it. Okay, are there any other citizens who wish to address the council this evening? Okay, that takes us to the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I move to approve the reports and recommendations of the city manager.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items any council member wishes pulled for separate consideration?
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
can you pull item number 3 from the reports and recommendations?
item number 3. Okay. Any others?
Yes, Madam Mayor, 735, 741, 748.
35, 41,
And 48.
and 48. Okay. Okay. Are there any other items any council member wishes pulled? Okay, hearing none. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda? Minus item number 3, Resolution 21735, Resolution 21741, and Resolution 21748.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy. Yes. Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Consent agenda passes. Councilmember Stewart, item number 3.
Actually, just a question for the city manager. The 54,500, how's that compare this year to previous years that we paid for that advertising?
Those numbers are pretty close to one another, pretty similar pricing for the services delivered through the agreement with the Kansas City Royals.
Okay, so just, has there been any discussion? You know, the Royals are letting in a fraction of the people they normally do, so that means a lot less eyeballs are gonna see it. Was there any discussion on lowering that price?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Eric Erf, our tourism director, or Parks Rec and Tourism Director is here and can have him give you a quick synopsis of the negotiations.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Eric Erford, Director, Independence Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. There was a slight decrease in the overall price this year compared to last. Last year, I believe we were in the neighborhood of $64,000, so there was about a $10,000 drop. In addition, this particular year, because of COVID and because of some of the restrictions on some of the numbers, there was a change in the marketing deck so that more advertising was shifted to print, digital, as well as radio. So there's a lot less focus on the in-game promotions.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Erfurt, let me ask you a question. When you say last year, and it was 64,000.
I'm sorry, prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
last year there
we
was
spent
nobody.
nothing. Nobody did.
to
No, we spent
stadium.
nothing
Okay.
last year. It was the previous year.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, thank you. I
Sure,
was
thank
going to
you.
ask for a refund.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. Councilman Stewart, would you like to make a motion on this
I'll
item?
make a motion for approval on that item.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
No.
Perkins,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy. Yes. Steinmeier,
No.
Hobart. Yes. Mayor Ware.
Yes, item number 3 passes. Councilmember Huff, 21,735.
Yes, Mr. City Manager, will you explain this in a little bit more on this tax item? Is this the sinking fund one?
This is the sinking fund, Councilmember. This is intended to commit the increment financing, so the sales taxes from the general fund and the other special allocation funds, as they are right now. Once the TIF terminates, these dollars would be committed in future years through the life of the TIF to help ensure sufficient debt service, avoid situations such as in the past where we've had to make supplemental appropriations from the general fund to cover annual debt service obligations.
Okay. Is this the best we can do on this particular item?
I am confident to tell you it is. I will tell you that when it comes to this project, you're picking among a lot of bad options, but with this mitigates our loss to the greatest degree possible by avoiding any of those supplemental appropriations. So I believe that this is the best option to ensure adequate debt service for those future years, particularly once the TIF terminates, but we still have those financial obligations in those future years.
So is this something that we have to do now, or do we have time to do more research?
You know, in meeting with the underwriter, and the council may recall we've approved Goldman Sachs to serve as our underwriter on this. This is in fact essential. I won't even say a qualifier of pretty. This is essential to moving that refinancing forward. So here's kind of a quick sequencing for you and your colleagues. We will have a call at the end of this month with the rating agency, which is Standard & Poor. They will, kind of get a primer on independence, what's going on with it, our financial position, all of that. Then once they feel good and assured of our financial situation, that is when they will find the most advantageous day to go to market and seek refinancing. And while we're still in this period of historic lows with interest rate, we want to try to move forward with that to try to capture the most competitive low interest rate that we can, and also get this solidified prior to any of those balloon payments coming up in future years as well. But this is the critical next step to advancing towards that ultimate goal, which is the refinancing.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I move to approve 21-735.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. City Manager, I do have a couple of questions on this, or I suppose I shouldn't ask this as a question. I'm well aware of how many agencies and consultants that we regularly use who have helped us to get to this point and advised us on this over the course of at least the last 2 years. If my timeline is correct there.
It is.
So in addition to Goldman Sachs, who is underwriting this, I can recall having a meeting, discussion, I guess interview is what you would call it, with Reuben Brown, who's our auditor. I presume our financial consultant, Baker Tilly, has looked at this, as well as Gilmore and Bell, our bond counsel. And now, as you say, Standard & Poor will be approached once this is given approval, and our underwriter has the opportunity to do that. Could you, I mean, I know the few conversations that I've been engaged with over these 2 years regarding this, but could you just, for the benefit of the public, describe the type of scrutiny that has gone into arriving at this policy? In particular, some of the projects that were looked at in order to determine the city's soundness to be able to do this, as well as investigation of any fraud or wrongdoing that may have occurred.
In working forward this refinancing, it's important that bondholders have a certain degree of confidence about the city's, as you say, soundness and ability to pay. specifically with regard to this redevelopment project, the Falls at Cracker Neck Creek. So when Goldman Sachs' job is to try to make these bonds as marketable as possible so that shareholders will want to purchase them, and we'll have somebody who's, holding the debt that we can then, pay the debt service to over the period of time. In order to do that, they need to make, as I say, independence as attractive as possible from a, financial soundness and management best practices standpoint. So they do a, very, very, very strong degree of due diligence. The name Goldman Sachs is very well known in the financial marketplace, and they have a reputation to maintain, so they're going to want to make sure the soundness is there as well. So any of the things that may present any kind of uncertainty, they are going to ask a lot of questions about, just to make certain that due diligence has been done. So specifically, some of the calls that my team and myself have had with Goldman Sachs have been some of the very issues we've seen recently in the news, the solar farm project at Rockwood, the medical marijuana project, the Missouri City project. And the purpose of those calls was to understand, do those projects have any bearing on the falls at Cracker Neck Creek and or the city's ability to pay? Our due diligence there has shown that no, that those are independent and unrelated to that project. So that hopefully gives Goldman the ability to market these, which we're confident it does. But that's the level of scrutiny and due diligence that's done, and the level of analysis that's done on a very broad range of all of the public-facing conversations here in Independence.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any additional comments or questions on this item?
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. City Manager, of all the taxpayer-approved sales tax, on this, is Prop P included in this at all?
Prop P would be included to the degree that these other sales tax funds begin to waterfall and collect their amount. But no, this is only directly speaking to this project, Councilmember, to answer your question. No, because this is for sales that happen at the brick and mortar establishments within the redevelopment project. So transactions that occur, for example, Bass Pro or Mardell or Hobby Lobby or Duluth Trading Company, not any, the Prop P only applies to those online sales tax transactions.
And out of all the discussion, we still can't come up with a better name than sinking fund?
The one that we called it tonight is the Tax Increment Financing Supplemental Appropriation Policy.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank
Do you have a
Madam
question,
Mayor.
Councilman?
Yes, just
okay.
briefly. Mr. City Manager, you mentioned there was some lingering doubt or questions that Goldman Sachs may have had. I'd heard that. It's your belief they're satisfied and prepared to move forward, and they don't think they'll have too hard a time marketing these bonds and funding the project?
They have prepared a 376-page due diligence and disclosure statement that will be affixed to the bonds when they go to market. So I believe that that's pretty thorough analysis that will help market and sell these bonds.
Well, yeah, because it's big enough nobody will read it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to, this is a terrible you-know-what sandwich that we're all having to eat from a decision that was made long ago. Oddly enough, I ran across an article that says Bass Pro has a terrible history of doing this to places on top of it all. But this is still Independence, and we still are working class folks, and when we make a deal, we stick to it. And, I appreciate the work that you and Mr. Kidney and the staff has put into seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, even though it's a ways off. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Resolution passes. Councilmember Huff, 21741.
Yes, Mr. City Manager, is this the one with the eminent domain for the neighborhood?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick overview of what this is, if that's just for the council's benefit. So first and foremost tonight, if enacted, what this resolution would do is add the Land Clearance Redevelopment Authority into the tools listed in our economic development incentive policy. It would take some degree of effort and labor to prepare bylaws, governance documents, et cetera, for the LCRA, and staff did not want to go down that road should the council not be interested in doing so. So this tonight is not enacting the LCRA, it's on empowering it to exercise any of those authorities. State statute governs and dictates how that has to be done. This is simply adding it into the economic development policy, which would then put staff on the path of bringing back those enabling documents at a future meeting. But to answer your question directly, sir, in the event that we do move forward eventually with this group under state statute, it does have authority of eminent domain. There are a couple of qualifiers on that. One, I know in speaking with the Chamber of Commerce who's brought this forward, they intend to use it strictly for residential purposes and not commercial. Two, every project is going to require a redevelopment plan that needs to come before the council. That redevelopment plan would set boundaries for a project area and would have to have a finding of blight and unsanitary conditions to do that, and that has to be approved by the council before it can move forward. And then finally, per the state statute, that cannot occur with owner-occupied properties. Those have to be vacant properties in order for the eminent domain authority to move forward. So I know it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but I wanted to give you a little bit more context for your.
So I can barely hear you. These speakers seem to be turned down really low up here. What was that about the occupied?
Yeah, these are residential properties, and they could not be. It would not be utilized for owner-occupied properties. It would be ones that are vacant at the time.
And that's in this one right here that doesn't go into the
Yes, sir.
eminent domain, somebody living there or anything, or you're going to tear down a house because it's dangerous or
Correct.
whatever.
Correct.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and just to follow up on that, in talking with the housing committee at the chamber to put this together, their hope is to get a hold of some of the, where, be an out-of-state property owner or an LLC that's just letting these buildings sit unoccupied, rotting. And I know, a couple times when you and I have been out, Councilmember, we've seen these houses that are unoccupied and unhoused individuals are occupying them, starting fires, which is a drain on other resources as well. It's their hope to get a hold of those and bring those back to life within a neighborhood.
Right. I don't have a problem with the vacant ones. I just don't want to move some little old guy or gal out of their house and tear it down for someone else's benefit. So
Yep, and
I
we,
move to approve 741.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. City Manager,
yes,
I was very concerned about the eminent domain. And you and I had a conversation just like today about this. And as I understand it, this council will have review authority over this board's wish to use eminent domain, and we will have veto power over their wish to do the eminent domain. Is that correct?
and I will, I'll give the full council the same example I gave you. If the redevelopment project came forward and it had 10 houses in it and you didn't like 2 of the houses that were in it, you can redraw those boundaries to exclude those 2 houses and say this is your redevelopment project that you can work within. So yeah, that is the checks and balances that you have against that eminent domain authority.
Okay. And if we remove the eminent domain authority from this ordinance, is there any reason to have the ordinance?
No, it's really not a tool that's effective at that point in time. It's the ability to, if I lived in Oregon, but I had a house here in Independence that was unoccupied, and you keep sending letters to my P.O. box and I'm just ignoring it. Without that eminent domain authority, there's really no way to capture the attention of these property owners.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes, resolution passes. Councilmember Huff, 21-748.
Yes, this is one I didn't really get in a lot. Is this for 10 million or the 16 or the 12 on the cash reserve?
Just for the, again, for the council's benefit, I'm going to ask Adam Norris to come up and just give a quick recap of why we have so many different numbers listed on here.
So there are two different recommendations going on here. One is from the PUAB, recommended $10 million. PFM and staff would recommend what PFM recommended, which was within that range of the $16.5 million.
So this resolution, what are we doing here? Is this on which behalf?
So this reflects what the staff recommends, but of course, this council can take the PUAB's recommendation and incorporate that into the policy.
So the 16.
Correct. Staff's recommendation.
Thank you. I move to approve 748.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Huff?
No.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
No.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. Resolution passes. This brings us to our public hearings for this evening. The first is a public hearing for the amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code pertaining to business park zoning districts and Articles 2, 3, and 5. This is a full public hearing. Mr. Scannell.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Tom Scannell. I'm the Community Development Director. The city has a current business park within its UDO. However, this district leans more towards an industrial district rather than a modern-day business park. The UDO goes in and it defines a business park as an attractive development with low-impact business in a campus-like setting. The downfall is that it doesn't clearly define or outline what those standards are. So staff over the last several months, beginning last summer, researched several communities, both locally and nationally, who had BP districts, and we incorporated what we found from those districts into this amendment that you see here tonight. One of the first changes that we made to the BP district is to make it a planned unit development district. This allows for better development that is more consistent with the comprehensive plan and also provides better benefits to the public. As we were going through and revising our BP district, we added key uses that we found that were missing from our business park. Uses such as conference centers, data processing and hosting businesses, research and development, along with computer manufacturing and light assembly. Along with that, we adjusted some of the definitions found within the UDO to provide more clarity for those uses to be found in a business park. A few uses were removed as we found that they weren't in keeping with what the city's vision for a business park was. Those include freight movement and outdoor animal shelters and boarding, car washes. Those are some of the uses that we removed from the business park. We also beefed up the performance standards for the BP district. We wanted the buildings to be more consistent with the architectural character in the area, strengthen the building facade materials and our articulation, and we further went in and required that all operations be conducted within the building. To better define the vision campus that the business park is looking for, we added what's called a floor area ratio. This is the ratio of the building square footage to the lot area,
And we also added a maximum impervious coverage. This is the amount of concrete and asphalt that's on site. Again, trying to get at that campus-like setting. We made changes to the exterior setbacks when you're abutting residential districts. So we increased that from 50 feet, or from 50 feet to 100 feet. We also increased the parking lot setback from 10 feet to 20 feet. We added additional requirements in regards to screening, that if they're going to screen outside mechanical equipment, that screening be in the same design and architecture that's used elsewhere in the building. We improved the fencing requirement. So fences a lot of times are used for screening. We are calling for that these developments have to provide a more decorative fence with wrought iron and masonry columns. We also added that landscape plantings be used to help buffer some of the noise that can be generated from some of these uses. Staff believes that this amendment is necessary to provide the high-quality development within the business park that the city feels. This UDO amendment was considered by the Planning Commission at its March 23rd meeting and received unanimous support from the Planning Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a full public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in support of this amendment? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Councilman Huff.
Yes, Mr. Scannell, know that the mayor and I directed or asked the city manager over a year ago about this, defining this a little bit better. I was wondering, and I know that this was because of the valley deal down here, was them people involved at all? I really couldn't hear you very good, or maybe that should be directed towards Councilman Steinmeier if he's had any feedback. I know this kind of defines this a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask the same question. You know, would you like to share that you reached out to
Absolutely.
Some constituents in my district and allowed them to speak into this development?
Yeah, so over the last several months, we reached out to, through Councilmember Steinmeier, to representatives of or residents in the valley. We had a deep dive with that, had several meetings with them to go over the changes and receive positive feedback from them. And so that is the outreach that we've done.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. I know it was a gray area out there, and we really needed to get some definition or define the difference between the two. So I appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, Mr. Scannell, I too want to just echo that group was very grateful for the opportunity to just meet and to share their concerns, that you and your team listened and you made government work, and that's what we're here to do. And you did that, and you did that very well, and they really, really appreciated what you came up with. You guys really did a fantastic job. I encourage everyone to look at the hard work that went into it, and I think it'll help us move forward with something that will be appealing to capital investment. So when I looked at the first definition, what was it, 2 sentences? There wasn't much to go on, was there? And you guys did a deep dive into it, and that's what was so impressive, is that you brought ideas, you brought plans, you looked at everything that's working in neighboring cities and around the metro, and you said these are the things that we know that are doing well. So Independence ought to be excited about your work, and Mr. City Manager, I commend you once again for Mr. Scannell and his team, not just for the hard work they did, but taking the time to meet with concerned citizens and allowing them that input and allow government to work.
And thank you for convening the meeting and the forum to communicate with the neighbors as well.
Yeah, we need to give Mr. Scannell a raise real soon here. Can we do that?
about
We got the submitted budget coming.
Are there any more comments on the public hearing? Okay, then I will close the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, will you please read the ordinance?
Bill number 21-016, an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 14 of the Independent City Code pertaining to business park zoning districts. Second and final reading.
Okay, Mr. Scannell, I do have a question. One of the points of enormous confusion as we were pursuing a business park development in the Little Blue Valley was that it was a subcategory of industrial development. So the industrial and the business park sort of constantly became interchanged. Does this still lie under the broad title of industrial development?
So it falls within Article 3 of the UDO under the industrial category.
Okay.
However, what the efforts that we took to amend this to take the industrial uses out of the business park and added in uses that you typically see in the modern day business park, plus adding the performance requirements and the architecture, the landscaping, the screening. So although it's in there, a lot of it is leaning towards more of the commercial side of things.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure that, everybody is clear on that as we continue to pursue development in our city, to be very clear about that. And I'm very, very happy, and thank you to Councilman Steinmeier for really demonstrating such leadership on this, on getting this done. At the time we were talking with developers about business park development, we discussed with them doing a PUD plan, inserting additional design standards, raising the expectation in the design requirements, as well as restricting the uses. And it's very nice to have this put into our UDO, so that our goal always is to be straightforward, to make things simple, understandable, to eliminate making a bunch of exceptions to the rules. So I think that this accomplishes that and really gets to what our comprehensive development plan envisions, and certainly the quality that we envision in this city through the city council and our strategic plan as well. Is there any other discussion on this ordinance?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
regarding, Mr. Scannell and I had a conversation before the meeting tonight, and on Article 2, Section 3, it recites that in the last sentence, no grooming or pet boarding is allowed in this use. And I believe that it should read, no outdoor grooming or pet boarding is allowed in this use. Therefore, I'd like to amend this ordinance, Article 2, Section 3.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing none, Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins, Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes. Motion passes. Is there any further discussion? Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll on the ordinance as amended?
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins, Stewart,
Yes.
DeLucy,
Yes.
Steinmeier,
Yes.
Hobart,
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, ordinance passes. Our next public hearing is for the application by Aaron Ford requesting a rezoning from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to R12 Two-Family Residential for the property located at 12816 East 47th Street. This is new information only. Mr. Scannell.
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, this rezoning was considered by the Planning Commission at its March 9th Planning Commission meeting. This rezoning essentially corrects a legal non-conforming situation. This application received unanimous support from the Planning Commission and have no new information to report.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the council on the public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Madam City Clerk?
Bill number 21-017, an ordinance approving a rezoning from District C1 Neighborhood Commercial to District R12 Two-Family Residential for the property located at 12816 East 47th Street South in Independence, Missouri. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins. Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, ordinance passes. We have two non-ordinance action items this evening. Madam City Clerk, will you please proceed with the first one?
Council action is requested for consideration of a renewal of a license agreement with the Independence Square Association for the use of public areas on the Independence Square.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Weir.
Yes, item passes. Item number 2.
Bill number 21-749, a resolution directing the city manager to suspend for 30 days the increase to the fuel cost adjustment resulting from Winter Storm Uri in February, effective May 1st, 2021.
Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember DeLucci.
as I understand, we are right now $19 million below where we're supposed to be in terms of our reserves. We have incurred this cost, we have paid this cost already, and we've billed half of our customers for the reimbursement from them toward their share of this cost. Is that all correct, Mr. Nail?
If it's okay, I may go ahead and just,
Oh, sorry, thank you.
the only clarification I may add is we've billed half of the customers for that first installment. So the amount that we told the customers was somewhere in the range of $9 to $10 per bill for each of the next 6 months. So that first month, half of those bills have gone out that reflect that $9 or $10 cost on there. There would still be 5 more bills subsequent to this one.
And this fuel cost adjustment has been part of our program for over 50 years, is that correct?
Sometime in the 1970s is when that was adopted by ordinance into the business plan.
And we're not getting a profit from our customers, we're simply recovering the $8 to $11 million we've already incurred, is that correct?
Right, and it's a little less than the actual. In fact, it's about 3 times less than the actual cost. We're passing on a portion of that to the customers. The rest of it is being paid for from IPL funds.
So the IPL reserve is already paying part of it.
Has already paid, period.
Are we asking our customers to reimburse fully the cost that IPL paid?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay. And this delay of 30 days, what will that do for us?
It's my understanding that the intent of this is to give us the opportunity to review any opportunities that may come for other cost recoupment opportunities.
Would we still have that ability to recover the costs, whether we did this today or in 30 days?
I think I would want to double check this with legal, but I think because we have paid, that standing is there.
The standing to recover it if we can.
Correct.
Do we have any evidence that we were gypped yet?
Not as of yet. Now, that is through a review of the bills by our own internal staff, not through any outside consultants, experts, financial audit, attorneys, et cetera.
And so if we delay this 30 days, what's the benefit other than having 30 days to do what?
That gives us the opportunity to review and see what opportunities to check accuracy, I guess, would be one, and secondarily to check opportunities through other parties that may join in alternative cost recovery opportunities.
Thank you.
So I'd like to just be clear about why I requested this. or my reasons for why I requested this. I have no concerns about our methodology. I understand the system that is in place for this type of circumstance, but this is not a circumstance that we have ever seen before. We may likely see it again. And I had requested this because I want to certainly pay what we owe, and I am thoroughly in agreement with the methodology in which we are currently paying this. But I have been involved with 2 separate conversations asking us, the City of Independence, if we'd like to explore to see it, to make sure that these bills are correct. And those conversations are going to be happening this week. One is with some members of the governor's staff. The governor asked if we would be interested in looking at this and verifying that this is correct, and quite likely it is. I mean, very honestly, it's very likely that this is. I know that there are numerous lawsuits underway or being considered, and I would like to have a little time to understand those a little bit better. I would feel more comfortable with our ratepayers, with our citizens, if we could simply have a little bit of time to continue to have some conversations that have been initiated. I certainly am not suggesting that we don't continue, that we don't continue to recover this cost, or that we choose another method for recovering this cost, but I would feel more comfortable being able to say to our citizens, we asked some questions that felt that needed to be asked, and we feel comfortable that the cost that we are passing along and the cost that we are absorbing, because frankly, this is all the ratepayers' money, whether they're getting it in their bill or we're taking it out of our cash on hand, it's still their money. And I just feel that this is a very unprecedented situation. It's a very serious situation. It has a big impact on our city and on our utility. And just taking a little time to make sure that we feel comfortable that we've gotten our questions answered is why I've asked for us just to suspend this for 30 days. And we should certainly I would feel more comfortable being assured that that the cost is justified, and I absolutely agree with the methodology. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilman Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Being part of the Southwest Power Pool, do we have any council guidance from them on how we reach these fuel costs? Can they give us some formula, help us out, walk us through that? Because if there is possible wrongdoing somewhere, who would we be taking legal action against? The pool or individuals? I mean, it's kind of a convoluted thing.
Yeah. More your contracts with your different purchase power agreements. So, on one end, you've got some ownership share at Dogwood. At the other end, we've got contracts with Iatan, Nebraska City, groups like that. So they've incurred the cost and then proportioned it out to the parties who are bought into those agreements.
So even with those agreements that we've entered partied with, if the pool decides that party needs to shut down or draw back down, there's nothing that we can do as recourse, even though we have those contracts in play, because they supersede those contracts. Would that be a good assessment?
Probably the most direct way to answer that, Councilman, is to say Dogwood has, they used a certain amount of natural gas they were technically down during the storm for part of it, but let's just pretend for a minute. But they incurred some costs there. They are proportioning that out to the party. So we have our agreements with these different power plants who have bought the natural gas to fuel the power plant. They're passing that cost on to the agencies who are bought in to that for shares of electricity.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Comments or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Steinmeier.
Mr. City Manager, the fact that we've paid this already, I mean, we didn't do anything with the force majeure where we sent that and allowed and let them know that it may be that nothing happened and everything's on the up and up, but we didn't leave an opportunity to come back should we find that there was some price gouging, something that someone else uncovers that maybe we'd be able to claw back some of that excess cost. We didn't do any of that.
We reviewed it's not a bill that comes to your home like your Spire gas bill, but we reviewed our charges from these various places where we have contractual agreements for appropriateness and accuracy, and then paid in accordance with our contractual agreements to that effect.
And my concern is once you pay the bill without notifying them that we're not closing our legal options, we pretty much have once we pay the bill. And I know that may not be accurate, but that's the research that I've done. And, you know, listen, energy states, governors, regulatory commissions, they're all looking into the possibility that people were taken advantage of. If that's the case, and there's a way to claw back some of these additional charges because the mitigated risk is there, that we should have the ability to do so. And you know, apparently our governor's now concerned. Somebody made some money somewhere. We don't know if it was through ethical business practices. And there are plenty of places that are lining up to potentially have lawsuits to try to claw back some of those exorbitant costs. I just don't want us to lose out on that. I'm hoping that we can continue this conversation on this in the 30 days because there seems to be a lot of disagreements, a lot of confusion, and I think we need to get down to what we want to do in order to protect our ratepayers. I'm not sold that we've done everything at this point. And I want to make sure that if there is something else that we could have done, that we've done it, and if we didn't do it, that we learn from our mistake and we're ready for the next one. Because when we forecast, we have to know that winters are hard here in Missouri and summers are hot. So we could see this again this summer. We don't know. Forecasting is important. Mitigating risk is important. And so I would like to see us continue to have this discussion as part of this 30 days, as whatever you learn and more questions come up, find out what actions our state's taking. I think I'm just not prepared to close this and go, well, we did everything we can, and just say, well, sorry, ratepayers, this is the best you're going to get. I think we owe them more, and I want to ask more questions. I want to continue to research. I want to see what other states are doing. I want to see what other regulatory commissions are doing, and I want to see what other governors are doing. And so, if we could we put this on the study session next week and continue this if we pass this?
Yeah, you guys, the council can direct anything you want to have on that study session, and we're happy to add that as needed for you guys to have the dialogue and discussion you need.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good conversation to continue to have over the 30 days, just to be clear, and if questions arise, then we have the ability to do so. We're not just looking for time to see what happens. I think we just need to continue to have a discussion and see if we come up with other solutions. I've had people reaching out to me. They're not happy about it, the additional charges, and so I feel like we owe it to our ratepayers to have those conversations and make sure we're doing everything that we can. And like I said, and if not, at least we learned something and then we're preparing for the next one. That's all I
Madam
have.
Mayor.
Yes.
So with that study session, can you put like next steps, if this is passed, what's our next steps? And I'm an ABC guy, so if you can try to do that in an order that makes sense, so we can walk through what our discussion points and action steps would be.
Yeah, I think we can
much as possible.
we can definitely add that. I can tell you, and I will say this now, but it sounds like, we may want to discuss this next week. What would be helpful to know, because I know in some other discussions, the council wants to be careful how much we're spending on outside consultants. What specifically do we want to ask someone to look at? These contracts are very detailed and involved, and I think we know some subject matter experts we could bring in. So that's just food for thought of something to think about between now and next week. That will help narrow the time frame and the cost expended on that exercise.
Fair enough.
Madam Mayor.
I'm not an expert on the law, that's been pointed out numerous times. But I don't feel that our opportunity for litigation is over because we've essentially paid the bill. I mean, we have lots of examples of damages that are paid or action that has been taken after the fact. But I would like to have a better understanding of that. If there was, if something is discovered in the next 30 days or in the next 5 years, next 10 years, what our opportunities might be there. Yes, Councilman Huff?
Yes, my biggest concern here is who we're going to for this legal advice. All lawyers have their own specialty, and I'm just wondering if we've reached out to any utility lawyers that's what they do for a living to tell us what their thoughts are. There might not be nothing there. It shouldn't probably cost us anything to figure that out or see. I'm sure they're representing quite a few utilities since it affected this big a place. I would just like to see us reach out to, other than, just regular counsel that it's not their wheelhouse. So I know there's people out there in the utility legal end of it that might be able to guide us. Maybe there's nothing there, maybe there is, but.
Yeah, we haven't reached out to anyone yet because of the action hasn't been taken on the agenda yet. But yeah, we would definitely reach out to somebody in this area who has some expertise with this kind of law, for sure.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Hobart.
All right, you've all made it, several of you made it clear that you don't care what I have to say about this, but early in my career, I worked on a nationwide class action. I appeared in multiple states across the country. There was a direct purchaser action, an indirect purchaser action, and all the causes of action were different. They joined all the federal cases into one, and all the state cases were separate. Sometimes that happens. In that case, there was price fixing on vitamins. So there was a period of time when every person in America paid too much money for every product that had vitamins in it, which includes pop and lipstick and all kinds of things you wouldn't expect. So this goes back to your question, Councilman Perkins, when you were trying to figure out, like, who do you sue, who has standing. It depends on where you fall in the food chain, right? And of course, this is not legal advice because I haven't been hired as a counsel for anybody. All I can tell you is what my experience is. We would be potentially a direct purchaser, potentially an indirect purchaser. It could be different based on where we got what fuel from and who price fixed on what or who committed fraud on what. It would be different for every source or supplier. What I could tell you is you're talking about a whole different level of attorney that deals with these type of things. If there's a class action on this somewhere, Texas will be the first place they pop up, obviously. If there's one in the SPP is a direct purchaser. We're an indirect purchaser. But in some cases, we may be a direct purchaser. I know Mr. Nail went out and saved us some money by digging up his own fuel oil along the way, which was cheaper to get than natural gas in some places. So that issue is massively complex. And as Mr. Walker mentioned, the contracts are beyond belief. So the second part, on fraud, in a fraud case, if we're talking about a fraud where we find there was some intentional act that was done to defraud consumers, somebody sell to whoever, somebody lied to make money on you, the statute of limitations doesn't start running until the fraud is discovered. So if we discovered fraud in 30 days, that would be the biggest Christmas gift the entire United States would have. It would also bankrupt every natural gas company. They'd be done, or coal, or whatever the fuel source was. So, in 3 years, in 5 years, when somebody spent the money and the time to go track down what happened and they really dig something up, find a smoking gun or somebody whistleblows, we have plenty of time to sue. We won't need to be the first ones to do it. We can sign our names on a class action with guidance of counsel, and our rights will be protected. We will recover those fees. We're the harmed party. The SPP is a harmed party. Everybody in between is a harmed party. All the individual power plants are a harmed party. It would be a suit and an action of epic proportion if they find that there was fraud in the natural gas and coal prices spiking so as bad as they did. So take that for what it's worth. Back a little more on topic. I don't know that 30 days does much for us. I really appreciate the time you spent with me, Mayor, and explaining your position on it, and I do understand that. We may disagree that 30 days matters much. I don't think anything's going to change in 30 days. I really don't. I know you want to do some more investigation, but I kind of like to do business as usual, and I have no issue with keeping track of developments. I would hate to see the city spend too much time and money if you're talking about hiring a team of lawyers or investigators to go track down the fraud, because right now we don't have an inkling of it. We just have really expensive fuel costs during an 85-year weather event. So that's my take. I appreciate it, and we'll see.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I appreciate what Councilmember Hobart just said, and he made some very valid points, which is why I think we should continue to look into it. And I think that that's why we're trying to have this discussion. I think the points that he just brought forward are worth talking about, worth looking into, worth seeing. This is a complex issue. This is energy. You know, and no disrespect, it's not a vitamin company. It's energy. This is big stuff, and it is complicated. And I agree, we're not going to find it out in 30 days. The point being is that we started talking about it in February when this event happened. We're in April, and I think the points were very, very good, and that's the reason why we need to spend the time and look into them.
I'm sorry, I hate to do this.
Yes.
I know Mr. Nail's here. I don't know if he's prepared to speak on this or has a position on this. I guess I did forget to ask one question. Mr. Walker, you were talking about the accuracy of the billing. Are we talking about the accuracy of the billing to our customers? Are we talking about the accuracy of SPP's billing to us? Are we talking about the accuracy of Dogwood or Iatan's billing to us?
At the heart of the matter, as I understand it, council member, is making certain that the costs that were passed along to Independence Power and Light from the places where we purchase our power or we have an ownership stake like Dogwood, that the costs that they incurred from the month of February, that they have passed on the correct cost to the City of Independence and our Independence Power and Light Department. It's just a simple math problem from that point of what gets passed on to the customer in the fuel cost adjustment. The input that's essential is understanding the cost that came from one of those firms, Iatan, Dogwood, Nebraska City, et cetera, and making sure, in particular here, I think at stake is, as I understand it, is the gas costs. natural gas that was purchased to make the turbine run that made the electricity come to everybody's houses and businesses.
Would you mind if Mr. Nail got up and addressed just a little bit of this?
Pardon, say that?
Would you mind if Mr. Nail got up and addressed a little bit of this?
No, if you have any questions, that's fine.
Yeah, I do,
I'm
actually.
comfortable with that, yes.
Whatever questions you've got, Councilman?
Thank you, Director. I sure appreciate it. Very briefly, are you concerned that the cost that you intend to pass on in the fuel adjustment, are you concerned at all about that calculation, IPL's calculation of it costs us $10, and so we're ultimately going to pass on $10? Are you comfortable in the actual numbers that you've calculated for that part of it?
Yes, sir. There's no question about the calculation. The formula is pretty straightforward, and it's published in the rate that's ordinance approved and part of our rate schedules. What we did, if we took the total invoices that we received from Iatan and Nebraska City, Dogwood, just a straightforward dump all of that into the calculation, it would have been a fuel cost adjustment of over 12 cents. There is one line in that formula.
Slow down. 12 cents
per kilowatt hour.
Thank you.
There is a line in that formula that allows me some discretion to anticipate costs, to delay some costs, and we chose to use that to reduce it down to a lower level. The 3.99 cents that we ended up with, and again, this $10 to $15 is not a set price per customer.
Slow down 1 second.
Okay.
And I don't mean to interrupt you like that, but I just want to make sure I get it. And Councilmember DeLucia brought this up. You have sent out bills to a certain number of residents that include a $3.99 charge on them.
No, sir.
No.
3.99 cents per kilowatt hour used.
My apologies.
It's a rate. It's a cost adder that's added to based on their usage.
Thank you.
We've sent it out to a little over half of the cycles have been billed for this month.
So does that mean a little over half the ratepayers?
Correct.
Okay. Also, then, do you know what that average bill is, or at least like the average residential bill? Because it would vary wildly with Walmart or the school district.
I haven't seen the statements for this month, but a typical winter month or winter spring, a typical month would be around, let's say, 600 kilowatt hours. So if you're in that ballpark, then that's about an additional 9 cents added to your bill, or $9 added to your bill.
Okay, $9. And that $9 charge.
Let me, can I ask, I don't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead,
Is that just, for a regular residential customer?
Yes, Mayor.
That's what you're talking about,
Yeah,
just a household?
typical residential
Okay.
customer, yes.
So not the Walmart, the grocery store, the school district, just a typical residential
The
customer?
more kilowatt hours you consume, the higher the
Yep.
effect's gonna be on your bill.
Okay. Then, and you would intend to do that for some months?
We're guessing about 6 months, but we would take a look at those costs and review that fuel cost adjustment every month.
Okay, and what's your goal then in reviewing it every month and then sort of messing with adjusting the formula? What's your goal with that?
Our goal with that was not to hit the residents with too high of a bill all at once, to spread it out.
Okay, so are you looking to stick in that $9, $12, $15 range-ish if you can?
As much as possible, yes.
Okay, and that's just a decision that you made, that in your judgment, possibly you work with city staff or whatever to talk about what you think might be acceptable or appropriate?
Correct. Rather than try to apply it all at once, to lower that monthly cost down and spread it out.
Okay. One more thing. Do you know the total extra fuel costs that we had?
The
Or an
invoices,
approximate?
the invoices that were received totaled about $12 million. A typical February would be in the 2 to 3 million range. So you're looking at an extra cost of maybe $9 million.
Okay, and under this fuel adjustment you're doing and stretching it out, are you doing the full 9 million back?
No, sir, right now we're not. We're weighing that against where our balance is, how are our reserves, what other additional costs might we hit over the next couple of months. And right now we've absorbed it into the reserves, but we'll try to recover what's reasonable.
And was Councilmember DeLucci correct when she said that our current reserve at IPL is down 19 million?
As of the end of March, we are 18.8 million below the 67 million threshold that was set by the resiliency policy.
Okay, I appreciate you answering that. It's good to keep things simple for me. Thank you.
So we haven't, I'm sorry, I'll be right with you. We have not done utility shutoffs. We have not done late charges for months. We have done a tremendous amount of utility assistance, and I'm grateful that we have been able to do that. There's more coming. Now there's a program that is bypassing us and being administered through the Community Services League and United Way. I mean, that deficit has been created by a multitude of different things.
Yes, Mayor, there's multiple reasons.
And our goal, I don't want to speak for everybody, my goal has been to prevent people from being kicked out of their house. That's the number one reason people find themselves unable to keep a roof over their heads, because they can't pay the utility bill. And so we've done, I'm proud of our community, what we've done to make sure that that doesn't happen. But that's not, and yes, we have said all along, we'll get paid when the time is right. I mean, there's going to be, there's going to be snow on the ground tonight. So I, again, have no dispute about you received the invoice, you applied a policy, a long-standing policy on how to deal with it because of the reason why that bill was so high was because of fuel costs. So I have absolutely no debate with anybody regarding that. I simply am uncomfortable with the number of conversations that are happening around us and directly with us to say, we should just, I mean, I know it's been paid, but I still feel that it is not going to put us in too much worse shape than we're already in, to just spend a little time getting some questions answered and consulting with some experts in our state, in partnerships that we're involved with in neighboring states that won't cost us a thing to have. These conversations don't cost a nickel for us to have. So I just wanted to make that point. Councilman Huff.
Yeah, my biggest deal here, our city's struggling already with COVID and everything. And you keep throwing this number out there of $10. And the average kilowatt hour is 600. Well, this happens to be one of the lowest months there is in utilities, is March, April. So when it comes summer and the poor people out here that don't have as much, and now their light bill is $1,200, and then you're going to throw more on it. So you're looking at the lowest number when there is a high number here too. We're just getting entered, and statistically, you know that April is very, very low because you don't have to heat normally and you don't have to cool normally. So the 600 kilowatt hours, I just don't believe that for the summer. And the 6 months, we have businesses out here struggling just to make it. And you can throw some more on them. I just think that we need some time to search this out. I'm in with everybody else. It is the policy. I have no problem with that, but as long as we can push it back and try to figure this thing out, we've already spent the money. It's already paid. I don't see what the big deal is. So that's my stand on it.
Councilman, you're right. The bills do vary from month to month, and we recognize that, which is why we said we will continue to look at this on a month-to-month basis.
Right. My other thing is that 80 megawatts of our power is done from coal, and that's my biggest thing that I'm interested in trying to calculate. We keep bringing up Dogwood. Dogwood shut down for a reason. When they did come back up, gas prices were back to normal. Before the 15th, they were a little bit escalated, but the rest of our production, we have the solar, we have the wind. Iatan, Nebraska, they're all coal-fired. So gas had no bearing on this, and that's what my problem is with the price agreements. I understand there's price agreements. What protection do we have because gas went up? It has nothing to do with our price agreements, and that's where I think we have some fallacy here, and that's why I think that we're getting ripped here. And that's the part that bothers me. It's not the price of gas. Everybody knows it went up. We have a lot of coal out there that we are in contracts with, and I want to know why they juiced us for that when they're on coal.
Madam Mayor,
Excuse me, Councilmember DeLucci.
in 30 days, we're still going to owe the money. We still have paid the money to someone else, and our citizens still owe us. And so we're going to go to these citizens in July and August when it's the hottest month, and then add the money. I don't want to do this. We owe the money, we paid the money, we're asking our citizens to simply reimburse us. We are $19 million below our reserve. We are cannibalizing IPL. We just adopted this policy within the past few months. And we're gonna be going out saying to bondholders, hey, we need money for bond. Oh, we know we have a policy, but we don't follow it. We don't need to, because we're smarter than the people who run IPL. We are giving our citizens false hope. There is no reason for this, and I am very much opposed to a 30-day delay.
Councilman Perkins.
I didn't have anything to add.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw you. Was
I'm-
there another?
I'm contemplating deeply, though.
Did you want to say something? Okay. Is there any other further discussion?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Steinmeier.
This is not an issue of fraud. I think all the conversations that we've had leading up to this point is about what took place in the market. I mean, we've asked the questions, Mr. Nail, when the market prices got too high, and those market prices got too high because of what reason? Do you know?
A variety of issues, but one of the main drivers was gas.
Yeah, and where was the bulk of that gas coming from? What state?
Texas and the Midwest.
And Texas, is it a regulated state or a non-regulated state?
Non-regulated.
There you go. So there is our corruption. We have an unregulated source of energy that we buy energy from, right? Gas.
Wherever Spire gets their gas.
Okay, so when we saw that the market was going crazy, and all this happened in just a matter of days, did we have a kill switch? I mean, was there a point where we said, we're not going to pass this, we can't pass this additional cost on to our ratepayers? Was there any thought to hedging that volatility and that risk to our ratepayers?
As we've discussed previously, we saw the prices going up on gas, and so we shifted our CTs to fuel oil.
Right.
And we went out and found the lowest cost fuel oil contracts we could so that we could have that oil on hand.
Right.
Dogwood doesn't have that fuel flexibility, so they just burn gas. And there are some measures built into the operating structure of Dogwood, which is why when their credit got to a certain point, the Dogwood management team said, that's it, we can't do any more.
Right.
And so they pulled the plug.
Right, because they shut down because of the market volatility.
After several days of paying high costs.
It doesn't matter. I mean, they were hedging they were hedging the volatility and the risk of going above what they could do. And my question has always been the same. Who at IPL is looking at risk management in terms of hedging the volatility and the risk that's in the marketplace? Is it you?
We don't really have that function anymore, Councilman. We are in the market with SPP. We buy every bit of our power from SPP at the low price that they can get for us.
Right.
And then anything we generate goes to them for credit.
Okay.
We're not in the energy market like we used to be prior to 2014.
Yes. Okay. So all I'm saying is that we understand that we were purchasing gas from an unregulated source. They spiked the cost, and now we're sitting with a bill. And all I want to do is learn how that happened, why we didn't hit that kill switch as soon as we hit a threshold, and did what was necessary to not have to absorb $11 million. And now we have, and I understand the FCA, but it's like, when you don't have, when we're not participating in that volatility on a day-to-day basis, we should, with an FCA, you kind of don't have to, because whatever we miss, we just can pass on. And I want to make sure that we understand that it's not a fraud issue, it was a market issue, and that market volatility is not going away. In fact, it's probably going to get more interesting. And I just want us to be prepared for the next round, which could be in 3 months. We just don't know.
And I will tell you that FERC has announced that they are launching an investigation into the gas pricing, and MPUA, SPP, everyone is following that very closely.
And that's all we're saying. Let's look at what's happening, because there were some people are getting fired, they're filing bankruptcy, they're lining up for lawsuits, they're writing checks. If there's something we can claw back for our ratepayers, I want us to do that. I think we owe it to them to do that. Not just pass on a bill and go, well, that's just the cost of doing business. No, we have an obligation, if we're going to play in an unregulated market, to be smart. That's where I'm concerned. So I'd like to continue the conversation.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor, I will throw my 2
Okay.
cents in after strong contemplation here. So, thank you. Brave man. Yes, thank you. So, Councilwoman DeLucy's comments were pretty on point. However, I'm going to vote in favor of the delay, but I'm afraid that we will be back here in 30 days and have to make a hard decision on moving forward. But I do have the comfort of what Councilman Hobart was saying, that we do have that ability to claw back at any time and purchase on. So just, if we have to, unless there's an absolute piece of paper that says fraud here,
Yeah.
then in 30 days I will be in support of moving this forward, but we'll see how it goes.
And to Mr. Nail's point, yes, I mean, March and April are your lowest usage months because of the mild weather. Obviously, we're going to continue, as we have for the last 14 months, to have the consideration to our ratepayers not to hit them the hardest when things are the worst. We have the ability to make those adjustments, as you've said. So when we do have, if we're still paying this or passing this on to our ratepayers, if that's, which in some form or fashion we're going to, the bill's not going to go from 11 million to 0. I mean, we know that. Then we have the flexibility to be able to adjust that rate to not overburden our ratepayers. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do want to clarify for anybody watching tonight that should the council vote to approve this resolution, it is written with the 30-day moratorium, but it is also written to take effect May 1st.
Right.
And that is so that we can finish this billing cycle that
Right.
we're in the midst of. Otherwise, we would be required to manually credit 27,000 utility accounts. So,
And we're not asking to do that. We have enough, troubles, with
The Facebook
adjust
News
our
Network, I wanted to
rates,
get
and
that out
that's a
there.
very complex thing. I understand. We're not asking for that to be undone. We're just saying, if this were to pass tonight, that we would take a little bit of a pause, and then if it's deemed appropriate, we'll resume the program that has been put into place. Okay. Any further discussion? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
No.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
No.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Item passes. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-015, an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Article 6, Purchases and Sales, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, and Section 6, and directing the city manager to amend the procurement policy accordingly. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilman.
Since there was lots of discussion on this week, I'll make my point very fast. I just want to make a motion to amend this. I want to take out the portion where it talks about all professional contracts have to be approved by the city council. I would like to reinstate the old language, but in the old language, lower it to $50,000.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, I could not hear
Couldn't hear.
Mr. Stewart. I'm
It's
sorry.
really difficult.
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to make a motion to amend the portion where it talks about all professional service contracts have to be reported to and approved by the city council. I'd like to put back in the old language, but in the old language, lower it to $50,000 instead of the $100,000.
Okay, thank you.
So the, Councilmember Stewart, the amendment would be, we just look at all contracts 50,000 and up.
Yes.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, maybe I'm confused, because I thought in reading this, Mr. City Manager, that change had already been made in the ordinance, that the proposed amended ordinance included what Councilman Stewart has just made the motion towards.
I'll ask the city clerk to explain for you.
Okay, so please.
Yeah.
So in your packets, you have two drafts of the ordinance. The initial draft, which is what the current bill is.
Oh, okay.
And then the amended draft, because at the previous meeting, Councilmember DeLucci asked that staff provide the amendments because the
okay.
first draft wasn't clear.
So Councilman Stewart is making the motion for the amended ordinance that appeared in our packet but is not the item.
Yes, it should have
very
been in
good.
your packet
Okay.
as proposed amended ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, then is there any further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes, motion passes. So Councilmember Stewart, would you like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended?
I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff?
Yes.
Perkins?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
DeLucy?
Yes.
Steinmeier?
Yes.
Hobart?
Yes.
Mayor Weir?
Yes. Ordinance passes. We have, this takes us to our first readings, and we do have one appropriation ordinance that may receive two readings and be voted on this evening. Madam City Clerk.
Bill number 21-018, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to approve a cost share agreement, supplemental agreement number 1 with the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission for the US 24 Cost Share Project Phase 1, project number 111801, and making the necessary appropriations. Bill number 21-019, an ordinance amending the Independent City Code, Chapter 1, Article 40, Tourism Commission. Bill number 21-505, an ordinance adopting amendments to the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 budget, which was approved by ordinance number 19131. Bill number 21-505, an ordinance adopting amendments to the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 budget, which was approved by ordinance number 19131. Second and final reading.
Is there any discussion on this bill? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Huff,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
DeLucy.
Yes.
Steinmeier.
Yes.
Hobart.
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes. Ordinance passes. Under the information only, as always, I would draw your attention to the COVID-19 semi-monthly update. We're continuing to work really hard at the vaccination clinics that are being held every week. We're continuing to see a pretty dramatic decline in demand, so there are walk-in appointments available. We do those Wednesdays through Friday from 1 to 6 at the Independence Center. It's generally, if you come by, we're able to get you in after a very short wait. So if anybody who is still needing a vaccine and is qualified to receive one, please keep that in mind. Mr. City Manager, the Nolan Fashion Square CID proposed budget was, it's pretty disappointing. That doesn't seem to be a SID that is performing at all. Most of the money is allocated to some landscaping of the parking lot areas, and then, a bunch of money for administration of the SID. This just is not what we expected when this was first put together. We're not seeing development happening in that area. In fact, we're seeing place after place close, these are mostly national chains and they're slowly going away. So I would like to see, if you would mind providing the council with some information about retiring this SID. It's just simply not generating anything to justify continuing for them to pay the administration costs and have the board. So I think we need to look at a new strategy for the Nolan Fashion Square, but this just doesn't seem to be productive.
Yeah, we will get some research done on that and provide a memorandum to the council about options.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Did I miss something on 505? Was we going to read that twice?
we did.
Must have went right by me.
Didn't we? Yes.
Oh, okay. My mind was somewhere else. Sorry.
Oh, okay. This takes us to council member comments. I'll start on my left with Councilman Hobart.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councilman Steinmeier.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember DeLucci.
We've got, the Uptown Garden Fair is coming this Saturday to the farmer's market. In celebration of Arbor Day, there'll be plants and trees for sale, and I understand it's sold out, and it's from 8 until 2, I believe. The snow should stop by then, so everybody should come on out. Thank you.
Councilman Huff.
Yeah, I have a couple things. I had a homeless individual contact me today. I wanted to thank Sheila Saxton for reaching out to CSL and finding this guy something. He's had a couple of twists of bad luck. Looks like a perfect candidate to try to help here. Also have one other thing here. I had something that really disturbed me come about today. And I would like the city manager to look into it if that's possible. We have a lot of trust issues with the utilities with the city. Before I come in here this evening, I got a email from a resident who has received personal information, personal accounts, their account numbers, the amount they paid, whether it was an check or a card. We fight this thing with people trying to get in there, and now it was sent by city staff. And I believe that people need to be accountable for this kind of thing. We're trying to protect all these people's private information, and we're actually sending it out ourselves to residents, including a bill for the card and e-check of $111,000, and then I'll read it, and it says we only collected $80,000. That doesn't, the numbers just don't work very good for me. I hope we're continuing to do research on this, handling a lower fee. I mean, we're only collecting 80 and we're charging us 111. I thought it was totally ridiculous. But is to say, like I said, there's a lot of mistrust and a lot of stuff going on, and then, I mean, I just don't know how this happened, how we can send this kind of information to a resident.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened either. It'd be helpful to have that information to
I
look into
appreciate some
it.
feedback to the council.
Sir, if you could give me that information, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Perkins?
Nothing tonight on that issue, but what Councilman Huff was discussing, I have no idea. That really made no sense to me at all. But if that's going to be a topic of importance and some more cautious speak, I would suggest that we take those comments and take them directly to our city manager, not put them on City 7.
Councilman Stewart?
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Alexander, thank you for coming and informing us about the meeting later this week. I think that'll be really helpful and important. We certainly have quite a bit going on. This is always a busy and exciting time of the year in the city, so we're eager for this snow to come and go and we can get on with trying to have spring and looking forward to some of our tourism activities and farmers market and things that we all enjoy during the time of year. Mr. City Manager, do you have anything else this evening?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned.